and welcome back everyone to Actual English. I'm Jennifer Clyde. It's time for lesson 250 and today's topic is heat stroke. For those of you that tuned in lesson 249, I did give you a description of what a heat stroke is, but if you did miss that one, well, here it is. What is a heat stroke? A heat stroke is a very serious condition. What happens is when you are outside or when you are exposed to high temperatures for a long time, what happens is you stop sweating. And in that case, your body temperature rises and rises and rises. So your body becomes very hot. And what happens in those cases? Well, you may faint. So it's very, very dangerous. So basically, it's a condition marked especially by, when you stop sweating, and it's, of course, has to do with extremely high body temperature and collapses that result from prolonged exposure to very high temperatures. Okay, let's talk about heat stroke today then. Here we begin with Actual Talk.
Kelly, I've got a question to ask you. You come from Canada, which I imagine to be winter all year round and never get above freezing. That's just my stereotypical view because I've never been there. But coming to Korea in the summertime, are you okay with the heat? Does it not affect you adversely?
You know what? At first, I wasn't okay with the humidity and the heat at all. It was really difficult for me to take, and I think the popsicle industry owes me for doing them a lot of favors. But in Canada, we actually, where I come from, we do have hot summers for about 2 months, and I was a rower, which is a sport on the water, and I watched a lot of people suffer from some very serious heat stroke.
Oh,
it was actually something that we had to be careful about, and I've seen it put people in the hospital. I've heard of people dying from
it. Especially elderly people, I think they get affected.
Elderly people, people who are very weak, dehydrated people, athletes are often dehydrated.
Yeah.
It was definitely to be taken seriously, and nothing that we ignored.
Yeah.
So I didn't experience it, but I've always taken precautions.
Sure. I think I've had some mild, really, really mild heat stroke when I was younger. Like, I came up in a heat rash, where there was like red skin all over my body. It wasn't sunburn. And I felt really lightheaded as well.
You said dizziness? Dizziness is a big symptom?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sure. And I just hate hot weather in general, I've got to be
really?
honest. Yeah, I'd much prefer the winter time.
Well, the best thing to do, when I first came to Korea, I saw people with parasols for shade, but that's actually not a bad idea. The best thing to do is to stay hydrated and to just listen to your body. Yeah. And you'll be all right.
Sure. Water, shade, maybe even a little handheld fan as well.
And sunblock.
Okay, then we'll be sorted. Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Welcome back, everyone. Did you listen carefully? How much of the conversation did you understand? Well, even if you didn't understand parts of it, it's okay. Don't worry. I'll help you out. Here we go. Let's take a look at the conversation together then. First of all, Peter says, Kelly, I've got a question to ask you. He could have also said, I've got a question for you. You come from Canada, which I imagine being winter all year round and never get above freezing. So he's talking about his idea of the weather in Canada. Well, Kelly says some places, that's just my stereotypical view. Now, he's talking about the weather in Canada, right? But he says that is just my stereotypical view. Stereotype, you've heard, okay? It's basically an opinion or a concept, right? Stereotypical is an adjective, and of course we're talking about something such as an opinion or a concept that is quite common, okay, that people tend to have. He says, why? Because I've never been there. He's saying he's never been to Canada, so that's basically what he thinks or what he's thought until now. But coming to Korea in the summertime, are you okay with the heat? If you say, I am okay with the heat, or I am okay with something, you are saying that you're all right with it. It's satisfactory. But if you say, I am not okay with something, you're saying that you have difficulty with it or you don't like it. So anyhow, he says, coming to Korea in the summertime, are you okay with the heat? Can you tolerate the heat? And then he asks, does it not affect you adversely? That is one of our vocab words for today. Adversely means negatively, okay? Does it not affect you negatively, adversely? Kelly says, at first, I wasn't okay with the humidity and the heat at all. See? I was not okay with the humidity and the heat. Not at all, she says. So once again, I did give you what okay with something means. Here she's saying what? At first, in the beginning, maybe when she first came to Korea, she says, I wasn't okay with the humidity and the heat. She's saying that possibly it was difficult to bear, difficult to endure, difficult to tolerate the humidity and heat of Korea. It was really difficult for me to take. Here's another vocab word. When do we use the word take? T-A-K-E. I could take something from you. Okay, I could take my friend with me to a party, for example, which means to bring along with me. But here, take has a different definition. In this sentence, it means to endure, to tolerate. So she's saying, it was really difficult for me to take. It was difficult for me to tolerate and endure. And I think the popsicle industry owes me for doing them a lot of favors. First of all, what is a popsicle? I don't think we see many popsicles nowadays. I remember when I was little, I would go to the swimming pool every single day during my summer vacation, and I would always have popsicles. I would have at least 3, 4, or even 5 popsicles a day. A popsicle is a type of ice cream. It's a flavored ice or ice cream that's usually on a wooden stick. Okay, it's not really creamy, but it's usually fruit flavored. So it's flavored ice in most cases on wooden sticks. So she's saying, I think the popsicle industry owes me for doing them a lot of favors. What is she implying here? Do you have an idea? What do you think she's saying? She's saying, I think the popsicle industry or popsicle companies should thank me. Why? Because she did them a lot of favors, meaning she ate many, many popsicles. So she's saying they should thank me because I bought a lot of popsicles. I spent a lot of money on buying popsicles. Anyhow, but in Canada, where I come from, we do have hot summers. For how long? For about 2 months. Okay, so it's not always that cold in Canada. Where she is from, they do have hot summers for about 2 months. Okay, not very long, but just 2 months. And she says, and I was a rower, which is a sport on the water. Now, a rower, I think we talked about rowboats the other day, right? You would row a rowboat with rows. So a row could be something like a paddle that you could row a boat with. Could be made of plastic or even wood. But she was a rower, meaning a person that rows a boat, perhaps. So she says that she watched a lot of people suffer from some very serious heat stroke. So she saw a lot of people suffer from heat stroke. Now, she says, it was actually something that we had to be careful about. So they had to be very careful about, yes, heat stroke. I've seen it put people in the hospital. Okay. It, of course, she's talking about heat stroke. So she says, I have seen it, heat stroke, putting people in the hospital, meaning I have seen people going to the hospital because of heat stroke. All right. I've heard of people dying from it, losing their lives from it because of heat stroke. Now, Peter says, sure, especially elderly people. We're talking about senior citizens, people that are perhaps more than 60 years old, we call them the elderly, right? So especially elderly people, why? I think they get affected, perhaps because they are weaker than younger people, right? So Kelly says, yes, elderly people, people who are very weak, okay? Who else? Athletes are often dehydrated. Okay, hydrate. People say, especially during the summer season, if you are going to enjoy sports or if you are going to exercise outdoors, always remember to hydrate yourself. Always remember to be careful about hydrating yourself, okay? Because you can be dehydrated. D means what? D means minus, take away, negative, okay? There is no or nothing of something. So dehydrated means you are not hydrated, okay? It was definitely to be taken seriously and nothing that we ignored. Okay, let's take a look at this part. To be taken seriously. If you take something seriously, it means that you take it to heart. It is important to you. If you don't take something seriously, you are not letting it bother you. You are not letting it get to you, okay? So you are not letting it stress you out. But what is she saying? It was definitely to be taken seriously, meaning it was very, very important and nothing that we ignored. They did not ignore it, meaning they always kept it in mind and remembered to always keep themselves hydrated. So I didn't experience it, but I've always taken precautions, meaning she was very, very cautious. She was very careful about it. Moving on. Peter says, sure, I think I've had some mild, really, really mild heat stroke when I was younger. Okay. Now, the very opposite of mild would be what? Severe. Okay, so if you want to talk about something very intense, like an illness, for example, if it's very serious, very bad, you can say it was severe or serious. But on the very opposite, on the contrary, if it wasn't that serious, you can say that it was mild, okay? So he has had some kind of heat stroke, he's experienced it, but it was really, really mild. I came up in a heat rash where there's like red skin all over my body. Okay, heat rash. Heat and rash put together. Heat, of course, we all know. We're talking about hot temperatures, right? Okay, what about a rash? We talked about a rash or rashes a long time ago as I think we were talking about skin disorders. Now, you can have a rash if you are allergic to something. You may eat something that you are allergic to. But in this case, a heat rash is a rash that you get where your skin becomes all red because of the heat, okay? Perhaps because of the hot sunlight. So that's what happened. Okay, he was red all over his body. And he says it wasn't a sunburn. It was not a sunburn. It was a heat rash, okay? And I felt really lightheaded as well. Feel lightheaded. What does that mean? To feel lightheaded, okay? Lightheaded, let me explain this to you. Head, that's right. Light is what? Opposite of heavy. If you carry something heavy, you'll be like this, right? If you hold something very light, you'll be like this. Now, balloons filled with air are very, very light. So they float up in the sky, right? So if you feel lightheaded, it means that your head feels very light. So if you feel lightheaded, it's very similar to being very dizzy and at the same time, you feel like falling over or fainting, okay? Your head feels very light, so you feel dizzy and you feel like you're going to faint. Everything is just going around in circles, okay? So that is what happened in the past. Now, Kelly says they say dizziness is a big symptom. What? A symptom of heat stroke. And Peter says, sure, and I just hate hot weather. In general, I much prefer the winter time. So he's more of a winter person. He likes cold temperatures. Moving on, Kelly says, well, when I first came to Korea, I saw people with the parasols for shade. Let's take a look at the sentence here. Parasol, parasol. What is a parasol? I think a lot of people refer to those big umbrellas that we see at beaches, for example. You may go to the beach during the summertime, during a vacation, and you may have all these big umbrellas on the beach. They are parasols as well, but usually when we say parasol, we're talking about an umbrella. Okay, not very gigantic, but a regular umbrella that's used for protection against the sunlight. So these parasols are often carried by women more than men, and they are nicely designed. So umbrellas are for rain, but parasols are to protect people, or mostly women, from the hot rays of the sun. Okay, so she says, I saw people with the parasols for shade. But that's actually not a bad idea. The best thing to do is what? The best thing to do is to stay hydrated. Remember, drink lots of liquids, okay, to keep a lot of water, liquids in your body, and to just listen to your body and you'll be all right. What's this? Listen to your body. What does that mean? Could you listen to your body? How, you may wonder. Your body doesn't talk to you. Well, it does in some way because your body sends signals to your brain, okay, your nerves and everything. So when your body sends signals, okay, she's saying listen to those signals. If you automatically think, oh, I'm thirsty, drink water right away. If you feel dizzy, your body is telling you, hey, sit down, get some rest. So in those times, sit and relax. Do what your body tells you to do. Listen to your body and you will be okay. Peter says, sure. So water, shade, and maybe even a little handheld fan as well. And of course, Kelly says, and sunblock. These things will keep you safe under the heat. But what is a handheld fan? Handheld fan. We're talking about fans that you can hold in your hand, okay? Like folding fans or handheld fans we could fan ourselves with. So that is the end of today's conversation. Let's take a listen to it one more time.
Kelly, I got a question to ask you. You come from Canada, which I imagine to be winter all year round and never get above freezing. That's just my stereotypical view because I've never been there. But coming to Korea in the summertime, are you okay with the heat? Does it not affect you adversely?
You know what? At first, I wasn't okay with the humidity and the heat at all. It was really difficult for me to take, and I think the popsicle industry owes me for doing them a lot of favors. But in Canada, we actually, where I come from, we do have hot summers for about 2 months, and I was a rower, which is a sport on the water, and I watched a lot of people suffer from some very serious heat stroke.
Oh,
it was actually something that we had to be careful about, and I've seen it put people in the hospital. I've heard of people dying from it.
Sure, especially elderly people, I think they get affected.
Elderly people, people who are very weak, dehydrated people, athletes are often dehydrated.
Yeah.
It was definitely to be taken seriously, and nothing that we ignored.
Yeah.
So I didn't experience it, but I've always taken precautions.
Sure. I think I've had some mild, really, really mild heat stroke when I was younger. Like, I came up in a heat rash, you know, where there was like red skin all over my body. It wasn't sunburn. And I felt really lightheaded as well. Like,
you said dizziness? Dizziness is a big symptom.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sure. And I just hate hot weather in general, I've got to be
really?
honest. Yeah, I'd much prefer the winter time.
Well, you know, the best thing to do, I mean, when I first came to Korea, I saw people with parasols for shade, but that's actually not a bad idea. The best thing to do is to stay hydrated and to just listen to your body. Yeah. And you'll be all right.
Sure. Water, shade, maybe even a little handheld fan as well.
And sunblock.
Okay, then we'll be sorted. Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Okay, it's time for actual expressions, everyone. Get ready for it. Here we go with some vocab words first. Stereotypical. Here we go. Stereotypical. It's an adjective meaning common or conventional. We're talking about common concepts, opinions, and ideas people tend to have. What about adversely? Adversely, we're talking about something that may mean unfavorably or negatively. Adversely, take in today's conversation meant to tolerate or to put up with or even endure, okay? You can take the heat or you may not be able to take the heat. If you cannot tolerate the heat or hot weather, you can say, oh, I can't take the heat, meaning I cannot bear the heat. Got it? Moving on, popsicle is just a type of ice cream, I told you. Flavored ice, usually on a wooden stick. Another casual way of calling it is an ice lolly. It's kind of old-fashioned, but just to let you know, that is a synonym. And what about parasol? Here we go. Pronunciation, parasol. As you see, sol, S-A-W-L sound, so drop your jaw. Here we go. Parasol. Parasol, and it basically means umbrella, sunshade, or even a canopy. Quickly moving on to our patterns for today. Take somebody or something seriously. It's often used in the negative form, which means do not let it bother you. Let's take a look at some sample sentences. Here we go. Don't take what she said seriously. So don't take what she said seriously. What's the point? Do not. Meaning, don't let what she said bother you. Don't stress over what she said. Okay, ignore it, forget about it. Don't take what she said seriously. What about this one? Why don't you ever take me seriously? You could take somebody seriously. In this case, maybe when you tell your friend something, he or she never listens to you. They don't take you seriously. You can say, why don't you ever take me seriously? Do you think I'm always joking? No, please take me seriously. Taking a look at be or feel lightheaded. Lightheaded, you get the idea? You feel dizzy and you feel like you're going to faint. Okay, here we go with a sample sentence. I felt dizzy and lightheaded during my workout yesterday. This could happen if you work out all of a sudden and if you push yourself, if you work out for too long, if you overdo it, you could feel dizzy and lightheaded. You may feel like you are going to faint. So in that case, you can say, I felt dizzy and lightheaded during my workout yesterday. All right, everyone, job well done.
Now that summer is approaching, hyperthermia or heat stroke is something we really need to be aware of. It's an illness where your body is overheated. It's just too hot and your body is overheated, so you can become really ill or sometimes even die. It's a very serious condition. Some of the symptoms are cramps, dizziness, lightheadedness, there's many different symptoms where, because your body is overreacting to the heat. The ways to prevent it is by drinking water or staying in a cool temperature, having the air conditioning on. When I was younger, I actually had an experience with heat stroke. I was playing outside, it was too hot, and I was jumping around. And after I was done jumping around, I just felt really dizzy and really weak, and I passed out. And it was really scary because my body was so weak and I had no energy. But luckily, I had some water and I was fine. But, just keep in mind that it is going to be hot, so make sure you stay hydrated and stay in cool temperatures.
Whitney has helped us out today with today's actual story. Let's take you straight into it. Here we go. She says, now that summer is approaching, now that summer is nearing, hyperthermia or heat stroke is something we really need to be aware of. We've been talking about being very careful, right? Taking care of ourselves. So she's saying you ought to be aware of all the dangers of heat stroke. It is an illness where your body is overheated, meaning it becomes very, very hot, too hot. You can become really ill or sometimes even die. Okay, that's a strong word, but it could happen. It's a very, very serious condition. Okay, and then moving on to our final sentence. Some of the symptoms are, let's take a look, cramps, dizziness, or even lightheadedness. Okay, so we talked about feeling lightheaded. Well, you can say lightheadedness. These are some symptoms of heat stroke. Okay, once again, cramps, dizziness, and even lightheadedness. Thanks to Whitney once again, and let's take a listen one more time.
Now that summer is approaching, hyperthermia or heat stroke is something we really need to be aware of. It's an illness where your body is overheated. It's just too hot and your body is overheated, so you can become really ill or sometimes even die. It's a very serious condition. Some of the symptoms are cramps, dizziness, lightheadedness, there's many different symptoms where, because your body is overreacting to the heat. The ways to prevent it is by drinking water or staying in a cool temperature, having the air conditioning on. When I was younger, I actually had an experience with heat stroke. I was playing outside, it was too hot, and I was jumping around. And after I was done jumping around, I just felt really dizzy and really weak, and I passed out. And it was really scary because my body was so weak and I had no energy. But luckily, I had some water and I was fine. But, just keep in mind that it is going to be hot, so make sure you stay hydrated and stay in cool temperatures.
Did you learn a lot through today's lesson? We talked about heat stroke, hyperthermia. We all need to be very, very cautious. We need to take care of ourselves, okay? Nobody is going to do it for us. Friends and family may tell you to be very careful and beware of things such as heat stroke, but it is our duty, our own responsibility to take good care of ourselves. So be careful out in the sun, everyone. Next time, let's move on to a different category and talk about driver's license. Do you have a driver's license? Was it difficult to get a driver's license? We'll talk about that next time. In the meantime, come to our homepage, everyone. Come on over to www.ebse.co.kr. Look for Actual English with Jennifer and post up your comments, feedback, or questions if you have any on our message board. And also do not forget to check out our scripts on our message board, on our homepage as well, okay? It'll be uploaded there for you to check out. Okay, until next time, take care of yourselves and I'll see you again shortly. Until then, bye and we'll see you soon.